We're back with part 2 covering Sony's gaming dominance in the FTC versus Microsoft case.
Something that Microsoft likes to mention over and over in the argument, or in this document, is that Sony is the market leader. So why are you stopping Microsoft from getting the poor little old powerless Microsoft who's constantly referring to themselves as third place Xbox? You can see that on page 15, line 8. Why are you stopping them from buying this company that can help them maybe climb out of third place behind Sony and Nintendo?
That's just a...
I just imagine that image of the guy wiping his tears with money. You know?
That's a really good act. Like,
Specifically, they say, hey, we're offering these 10-year deals. They are binding agreements that'll make sure that we are delivering this content to everyone, including our main competitor, Sony, who's kicking our ass. And they're refusing the deal and instead focusing their attention on disrupting our acquisition. Like bullies, because they're number one, and we're tiny, powerless, sad Microsoft.
yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look up some financial reports, and
Ironically, within the documentation, most mentions of any financials for either Microsoft or Activision are redacted. Yeah, this is what in my head. I've just been reading Redactivision.
Redactivision.
We do with that what you will.
Redactivision.
If that's a fair argument, which I don't want to infer anything. I'm not a lawyer, but the number of examples and evidence that seems to be redacted, which I would assume would be market sensitive, says that maybe they're not having a great time recently, so they're trying to, put on their best rags and do the poor man shuffle in hopes that they can get out scot-free without too much scrutiny.
So a lot of the things they're framing here, especially with this whole argument, this whole document, Microsoft is kind of positioning themselves in parity with Sony only from the Microsoft games perspective. And again, the CMA didn't buy that. They were like, no, you're Microsoft, you own everything. This is why you have $70 billion laying around to buy Activision. A lot of this comes from the fact that Microsoft is like, look at how bad we're doing versus Sony in this small ring. Ignore the rest of the world, ignore the rest of what we own, ignore the fact that we own Azure, that we have more cloud infrastructure than anybody, that our only real competitor in cloud infrastructure is Amazon. Ignore all of that. We're just the third place video game company. Isn't that terrible? Why are you stopping us?
Yeah, it's like that guy who comes in with to the courts with an arm brace and neck brace, and after you know what I mean?
Yes.
We're Microsoft. How dare you?
Another thing they cite, though, is that Nintendo's cool with it. Why isn't Sony cool with it? Do you guys really think that Nintendo, second place Nintendo, who's also way ahead of Microsoft, do you think that they're dependent on Call of Duty or Diablo sales to sell their machines?
To be fair, I did buy the Diablo 3 Switch machine. Like, it's got a cool devil on it. Very nice.
Uh-huh.
I've never played it. I'll be totally honest.
All right, fair enough. Let's hit this one then. Page 13, line 9. They say that cloud gaming is unproven, which is to be decided. Unproven, that's fair. And therefore, the FTC cannot meaningfully show that competition will be lessened in the future. They believe that there is no way to prove that the future of cloud gaming is in danger because cloud gaming is unproven. How do you feel about that? What is the state of cloud gaming right now? This is something we can actually talk on as people who are presumably, authorities in the state of cloud gaming.
Well, I would say 99% cloud gamer. Okay,
Right.
So I might, from time to time, have a very simple game installed on my machine, like Roblox, and play it with my kids. But everything else, all the major games, all cloud-based. And in that point, it's obviously not unproven. For the average gamer who doesn't cloud or play through the cloud, of course it's unproven because they've never tried it. We've never been to the moon. That's what a lot of people keep saying, because they've never been to the moon.
Mr. Armstrong's been to the moon.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, I have something to say about that.
Buzz Aldrin would have fought you about that.
Oh, yeah, he would have punched you in the straight in the face.
Classic. I am not 100% cloud gamer, though. So I'm probably, 50-50 at this point. I like to kind of keep parity so that I can compare as well. My position with my internet connection, cloud gaming is not unproven to me. It is unproven on a market standpoint, but from a technological standpoint, definitely doable. We have done work on cloud gaming. I will say that certain services, GeForce Now especially, I don't feel much of a difference in lag at all when it comes to even twitchy games like when we're playing Fortnite or Gears 5 or whatever it is where you need to be on point. Now, I suck at Gears 5, but that has nothing to do with GeForce Now.
And disclaimer, any lack of skill is not a reflection on cloud gaming.
Yeah, no, it happens. So, even games, even other things. Shadow. Playing Elden Ring on Shadow felt fine. And Elden Ring is a game that has some frame-specific timing.
It is rather beefy as well. The fact that I couldn't play that game on release without cloud gaming it says testaments to what it can be done. Say, hardware limitations that were happening over the pandemic in recent years. This and more, say, people who have good internet connections but have bad machines, or places that have part limitations, or God forbid something happens in the near future with, say, the semiconductors. We'd have situations where chip production could be limited and where the existing hardware is going to need to be shared over those cloud services because they just can't put out a new system. Like, that's going to be really important in the very near future. And the fact is that cloud gaming will allow people, it's basically tied to how far we can advance our technology and how good our internet infrastructure is going to be in the future. That's going to determine how big of a market share cloud gaming is going to have in the future.
Yep.
It's huge. Let's take the anti-competition argument. So, higher prices, lower output, right? Worse quality. Let's apply that to cloud gaming. Now, the main argument from everyone who's against cloud gaming is lower quality. That is true if your internet is bad, and I can say, or if you're very far away from your source. So, yes, there is a possibility of a lowered quality of life from cloud gaming.
It also depends on the platform.
And it also depends on the platform. However, decreased quantities, cloud gaming is not going to be doing that. This means, and higher prices, that's not an issue with cloud gaming either. We are trending towards cloud gaming because of the lack of a barrier to get in. If all you need to get into cloud gaming is a phone and an internet connection, that is way easier than buying an Xbox. It's way easier than buying a PC or a PlayStation 5. The same principles that the FTC is trying to protect are what is guiding us to a cloud gaming future. The fact that there are low barriers to entry, the price is right. These things are going to trend us in that direction. I mean, streaming Netflix was a joke until our internet caught up.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, to make the argument in the other direction, what would have happened if, say, it's a situation where you have a market leader that then becomes a market maker, where they can decide what goes on their platform. They can decide, say, what message gets put across or what companies can succeed because they can simply block them from being released on that everybody plays on. like games blocked from Steam for the longest time until, say, Steam Greenlight and all that other stuff, you had to go to their individual website and download a client and pay on some janky website. It on Steam creates an air of legitimacy. You'd want to be on that platform. Now there's other options, but what if we aren't in that place? And I think that's what a lot of people are worried about.
Yeah, that's the CMA's argument. The fact that Microsoft's in charge of the cloud already, giving them more power is a danger. Straight up.
Yep. That's what it comes down to.
Microsoft states in their argument, page 14, line 22, they have no incentive to withhold Call of Duty from Sony.
Yeah.
They
Well,
have
of course,
none.
right
No
now.
incentive whatsoever. Why would
Of
they
course,
ever withhold Call of Duty from Sony?
Especially, they have a document saying that they'll make sure that they don't do that for at least 10 years, right?
At
That is
least 10 years.
At
And
least
that is-
10 years.
That is their next
Wait.
point on page 15. We have binding contracts in place that Sony could take advantage of right now. They could take advantage of it. What happens after 10 years, guys?
Anything Microsoft wants to.
Were you playing video games 10 years ago? And to be fair, it is kind of ridiculous for a company to sign a in perpetuity contract. But that is kind of what they have to do to guarantee they will never pull it from Sony, right?
Yeah.
Sony doesn't want a doomsday counter of 10 years and then we lose our best-selling title.
If they were true to their word, they would have made it this contract much longer.
Open gaming license for Dungeons and Dragons was a similar situation where you had a company that created an open workspace where other companies could use this base set of rules by following this specific document, allowed them to be able to grow along with them. And the changing of that had major ramifications. This 10-year contract that anyone could opt into, it sounds like a ticking time bomb.
You're correct. The OGL back created in 3rd edition of Dungeons & Dragons was designed, written so that it would be a in perpetuity contract, that it could never be rescinded. And when and that shows kind of the dangers, because Hasbro, who owns Wizards of the Coast, who owns Dungeons & Dragons, they were trying to get out of that. And when they did that, they basically played their hand. Oh, we're not the good guys that we were pretending to be. I think Microsoft is too smart to make a open forever contract like that, because it does put them on the hook, even if Call of Duty doesn't do stuff, or doesn't perform, or Activision somehow folds inside. You don't want to be on the hook for that. But there are ways to put outs for yourself in the contract, but it takes lawyers to look over contracts and make sure what's going to be binding and what isn't. So I personally don't think 10 years is long enough. I've been playing video games for 31 years, is basically as long as I can remember being alive. And I imagine everyone here listening to us who cares this much about video games is probably still going to be playing video games 11 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's go back to that conversation, though. They have no incentive to withhold Call of Duty from Sony. What? Were you just talking about a different thing that they bought? What was that? Was that ZeniMax? Was that Bethesda? Are they withholding Starfield from Sony? Is that a thing they're doing? Do they have a history of withholding titles from Sony after purchasing organizations?
What? No.
Never. They have no incentive. Why would they do such a thing?
No, we're in 3rd place.
They're in 3rd place.
We're the victims.
They are the victims. Oh, man. I do want to say that Nintendo and Sony both have more exclusives than Microsoft. I'll be honest, man. I've been digging through all these legal documents. Some of it's amusing, just watching the exact wording that big fancy lawyers are using to kind of build their cases here. But this is hard, man. We need Legal Eagle up in here. I need somebody who's actually a lawyer to take a peek at this. But that being said, we are cloud gamers, and we can at least say that there is a world that is coming where cloud gaming is only going to grow. I think the CMA is dead on. Cloud gaming is going to get bigger. And I think that Sony not having access to Call of Duty in the future, where cloud gaming is massive, is only going to hurt them. I think that Sony not having access to Call of Duty after 10 years, and that, keep in mind, they could renew it. There may be, again, Microsoft could be telling the truth. They could have no incentive to withhold Call of Duty from Sony, and they are just going to let them have it for the rest of time. And they're going to give them a version that's just as good as the version on Xbox. They're not going to delay it 6 months or 2 weeks and ruin the launch. They're not going to do any of that. They're going to give it to them. 100%. Really help out their competitor.
I'm imagining that scene from The Simpsons where everyone's holding hands and like the lawyer shudders.
Now, I would say, like, continuing with what we've been saying with, like, the growth of cloud gaming, another proof that it is actually growing is just the increase in the number of users. We're seeing, like, with every platform, more and more people are signed up every year. So, that's, as we say, that's the danger, because as more people join cloud gaming platforms and Microsoft has control of them, that shows even more concern about the dangers of them monopolizing the whole thing. But, I mean, we all believe as cloud gamers that cloud gaming is here to stay, and it will be the future. So we just have to see, how things work out from here. Like we said, we're going to be getting new information soon.
The case is opening up. It's going forward. So we're gonna keep an eye on this for everybody. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you want us to dig into more of this document, let us know. I mean, it was a lot of work, but we're just trying to parse it out and look at it from your average gamer point of view, your average cloud gamer point of view.
And as of yesterday, there are some big topics we're going to cover in the next Cloud Chat, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned.